We begin with the first force, intermittent positive reinforcement. Scientists have known since Michael Zeiler's famous pecking pigeon experiments from the 1970s that rewards delivered unpredictably are far more enticing than those delivered with a known pattern. Something about unpredictability releases more dopamine, a key neurotransmitter for regulating our sense of craving. The original Zeiler experiment had pigeons pecking a button that unpredictably released a food pellet. As Adam Alter points out, this same basic behavior is replicated in the feedback buttons that have accompanied most social media posts since Facebook introduced the like icon in 2009. It's hard to exaggerate how much the like button changed the psychology of Facebook use, Alter writes. What had begun as a passive way to track your friends' lives was now deeply interactive. And with exactly the sort of unpredictable feedback that motivated Zeiler's pigeons. Alter goes on to describe users as gambling every time they post something on a social media platform. Will you get likes, or hearts or retweets, or will it languish with no feedback? The former creates what one Facebook engineer calls bright dings of pseudo-pleasure, while the latter feels bad. Either way, the outcome is hard to predict, which, as the psychology of addiction teaches us, makes the whole activity of posting and chucking maddeningly appealing. Social media feedback, however, is not the only online activity with this property of unpredictable reinforcement. Many people have the experience of visiting a content website for a specific purpose, say, for example, going to a newspaper site to check the weather forecast, and then find themselves 30 minutes later still mindlessly following trails of links, skipping from one headline to another. This behavior can also be sparked by unpredictable feedback. Most articles end up duds, but occasionally you'll land on one that creates a strong emotion. Be it righteous anger or laughter. Every appealing headline clicked or intriguing link tabbed is another metaphorical pull of the slot machine handle. Technology companies, of course, recognize the power of this unpredictable positive feedback hook and tweak their products with it in mind to make their appeal even stronger. As whistleblower Tristan Harris explains, apps and websites sprinkle intermittent variable rewards all over their products because it's good for business.
Good morning, Tristan.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so you call this thing a slot machine.
Slot machine in our
What
pockets.
does that mean?
Well, it operates on a variable schedule reward. So sometimes you check your phone and you're playing a slot machine, and if you get a message from the person you love or an email to show up on the CBS morning show, it feels really good. And then sometimes you check your phone and there's nothing there. And the fact that sometimes you get something and sometimes you don't is what makes it just like a slot machine.
Attention-catching notification badges. Or the satisfying way a single finger swipe swoops in the next potentially interesting post, are often carefully tailored to elicit strong responses. As Harris notes, the notification symbol for Facebook was originally blue, to match the palette of the rest of the site. But no one used it. So they changed the color to red, an alarm color, and clicking skyrocketed. In perhaps the most telling admission of all, in the fall of 2017, Sean Parker, the founding president of Facebook, spoke candidly at an event about the attention engineering deployed by his former company, the thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them, was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible? And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while. Because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. The whole social media dynamic of posting content, and then watching feedback trickle back unpredictably, seems fundamental to these services, but as Tristan Harris points out, it's actually just one arbitrary option among many for how they could operate. Remember that early social media sites featured very little feedback, their operations focused instead on posting and finding information. It tends to be these early, pre-feedback era features that people cite when explaining why social media is important to their life. When justifying Facebook use, for example, many will point to something like the ability to find out when a friend's new baby is born, which is a one-way transfer of information that does not require feedback. It's implied that people like this news. In other words, there's nothing fundamental about the unpredictable feedback that dominates most social media services. If you took these features away, you probably wouldn't diminish the value most people derive from them. The reason this specific dynamic is so universal is because it works really well for keeping eyes glued to screens. These powerful psychological forces are a large part of what Harris had in mind when he held up a smartphone on 60 Minutes and told Anderson Cooper this thing is a slot machine.
Like, follow, subscribe.